I write this note to say why I'm not at work today. Whilst working on the 14th floor, some bricks I had to clear, but tossing them down from such a height was not a good idea. The foreman wasn't very pleased, he's an awkward sod, and he said I had to cart them down the ladders in me hod. Now, clearing all these bricks by hand, it was very slow, so I hoisted up a barrel and secured a rope below. But in my haste to do the job, I was too blind to see that a barrel full of building bricks was heavier than me. So when I untied the rope, the barrel fell like lead, and clinging tightly to the rope, I started up instead. I shot up like a rocket, and to my dismay, I found that halfway up, I met the bloody barrel coming down.
I love that. That works. Totally, that works. Thanks so much, Charlie, for opening up the show that way. So glad to
My
have you on
pleasure.
this show, honestly. And so, yeah, what time is it there now? You guys are 5 or 6 hours ahead.
Yeah, it's 3 p.m.
Three.
here.
Okay, 3 p.m. Yeah, so it's 10 a.m. our time. We're in Toronto. You're in Edinburgh. You're in Scotland. So it's actually, I think, our first Scottish. I think it's the first Scottish show. I'm trying to remember. It's been so many shows. So, and then it's really, it's funny. I've got another Scotsman, Stuart Wilson, who's from Altera, bigger construction company here in Toronto, and he's going
Oh,
to be
yeah.
on the show. And what's going on here? Patrick's saying something. He's chatting. Sorry. Patrick. Okay. He's interrupting. The spectator's interrupting us. Is the AI? Okay, well, we'll leave Patrick do his thing, but I want to welcome you to the construction life. I'm so glad that I'm trying to remember who reached out to us.
I think it was Patrick who, like I said, he does our PR
Oh,
side
okay,
of
yeah, that's right.
stuff.
It's Patrick.
Whatnot. Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
so I'm trying to get rid of Patrick, and then now we're bringing him back into the conversation. So we've got Charlie here from Edinburgh Construction. You're all over Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and house. The website is www.edinburghconstruction.com. And what's the email you want me to share? You want me to share your email or hello@edinburghconstruction.com?
Yeah, hello edinburghconstruction.com. That's the best that goes through to the team.
Perfect to get to the team, right? And then I'd love to share this phone number if you want me to share your phone number as well.
Go for it, please do. Yeah.
0131-202-0008. I want to give a quick shout out to Robin and Sons there. I've got his tea. I've said it several times that I enjoy this tea because it actually fits me really well. Some people have been giving me some teas lately that have been a little small. They don't realize that I'm an XL. I'm a slightly bigger boy. I'm not a tiny little guy. So it's just, I can't put on the large. I can put on the extra large. So this one feels great. Thank you very much, boys, for sending me this tea, and I enjoy it. And Charlie, I'd love to start this show to talk about your team, because I know you guys are huge about the team, and we'll get into. There's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about regarding construction over there compared to here, but I'd love for you to start off with your team and who you put on the roster, I guess, and what makes everything run.
Sure. Like you said, it's very important to us, and we wouldn't be who we are without the good guys and girls behind it. So we're about 40 employees now in the team, and we're growing again this year. We've got a good number of projects just kicking off. So we're in recruitment mode. In fact, I think we're always in recruitment mode, to be honest. But yeah, we employ a lot of trades, which is less common over this side of the pond, where we are. Most of the construction companies tend to be more what we would call construction management companies. So an office, and they just get subcontractors or agency labor in to do the work. We like to employ people. We like to take on apprentices. We like to train people up. We like to put people through internships, all that fun stuff. So yeah, teams highly important, and we're growing. Yeah, we're growing fast. So we're all about recruitment right now.
Did you start it, Charlie? Like, how long ago did you guys start the business?
Business. So we incorporated 5.5 years ago. The business was running for a couple of years before that. Just me and a couple of guys in a van, carpenter to trade, and that's where it all started. Yeah, and it's just grown like wildfire since then, to be honest with you.
What do you think the secret sauce is, Charlie? Like, I mean, you're a young guy getting into the business, and it's not really. I don't see that many young people getting as far as you guys have gotten in such a short amount of time. I mean, the work is impeccable. I'm going to get into the work, and but I'm really impressed, and I've got a lot of respect for what you've pulled off in such a short period of time. That's not the norm. So, what sets you apart from that?
I mean, if I knew what the secret sauce was, I'd love it, because if you could bottle that, you'd be a billionaire. I mean, for me, it made sense to start the business when I was young. It was quite a deliberate choice. I mean, I I've been working in construction for a while, since I left school, and I've been fortunate enough to work under some good bosses. Some of them were business owners themselves. And a piece of advice that I always given is, if you're going to do it when you're young. I think your risk appetite's a little bit more ambitious when you're younger. You'll get away with things in your 20s and 30s that you probably wouldn't touch in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. And I did think as well that if it all goes wrong, I'd be young enough to brush off the dust and pick myself up and keep on going. So it was a conscious decision to jump in young. I had a fantastic job before I started the business, to be honest. So I didn't really have any need to do it, but it was always on my radar. I was, I guess, a terrible employee in the sense that I always thought there was better ways of doing things. And in hindsight, I'd say I was quite arrogant in that sense. And I always thought, well, if I was steering this ship, I'd do this, this, and this. And then I thought, well, let's see what you're all about, Charlie, and put it to the test. And in terms of what's behind our growth, I think, just as I'm sure you're used to, and many of your other guests are used to, just a lot of hours. It's a lot of hours pushing away, chipping away day by day, moving the needle. There's no magic bullet, I think, in this game. I think it really just comes down to how much you're willing to put in. And yeah, I think there's no secrets to success, or no get there fast scheme. It's just about putting in the graft, putting in the hours, and a bit of luck on your side as well helps sometimes.
I agree. I mean, I know that a lot of younger trades on this side, they're hungrier to get to the finish line sooner. They want to get to the objectives faster, and I think that there's value in taking your time and learning certain failures. I mean, for lack of a better word, I mean, there's definitely going to be some hardships. So I think you got to embrace those. I don't think everything's going to be perfect, as you probably are well aware of it. With 40 employees and you guys are still growing right now, what's that one component that you ask of every employee that is considering working with you guys? What are you guys absolutely looking for without even asking them?
There's a few things. I mean, you got to be passionate about what you do. This isn't a place for idlers. You've got to be really into the game, really into the sector, be really passionate about delivering good quality work. You've got to know your stuff. Even if you've got all the ambition and drive, if you can't do the job to our level, it's never going to work out. And thirdly, we like people that we get on with, if that
No, that
makes
makes a lot of
sense.
sense.
Yeah, if you come in and you muck people around, or you rub people up the wrong way, it's just never going to get off the starting block. You need to be a people person. You need to be able to communicate well. You need to be able to liaise with clients, liaise with stakeholders, work well in a team. Um, you know, Integrate vertically. So we don't really lean on a hierarchical structure where people tell other people what to do. It's much more of a collaborative environment. And that's not for everybody, and we're not precious about that. We can have some fantastic people come in and get involved in what we're doing, but it might not be the right fit for them, and there might be something that's far better suited to them. So but that's sort of the where it all starts for us is, can you do the job well, and can you fit in well with the team? You're a people's person, and then also committed to the sector, committed to delivering a good job and being a value add to our industry.
What's the stereotype in as like a tradesperson in Scotland? What is the stereotype? Is it still blue collar, boots on the ground? Is the career, is the occupation, is it valued, or has it progressed in a positive way? Or we, I mean, I bring this up because we have the same pitfalls here, right? Everyone
Yeah,
looks at tradespeople here a certain way. We're put into a certain box. Is it similar there?
definitely. I've talked about this before with some other people, because I've worked in different parts of the globe, and there's some places in the world where being a tradesperson's cool.
Yeah.
It's respected. I've worked, like, for example, Australia and New Zealand are two places that come to mind where tradespeople, it's cool to be a chippy. It's cool
Yeah.
to be a spark.
Yeah.
People look up to that. Um, I don't know too much about where you are, but in the UK, it couldn't be further from it. The stereotype is you couldn't hack it at school. You weren't smart enough for university. The only thing available to you was going down the Polytech and getting an apprenticeship with whoever would take you. And I think that it's such a shame because the technical aptitude required to succeed in the construction sector is vast. You really need to be a sharp tool. No pun intended. And the stereotype of we're all just happy-go-lucky chaps that just fell into it, I think is a real shame. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same where
No,
you are, but
you're literally, you could be a Canadian, you could be an American, and you'd be sharing the exact same words. That's exactly the mindset, and you're totally right about Australia, and I totally respect a lot of the tradespeople in Australia and New Zealand there, because they do have a different, and I'm trying to figure out what they do differently. I guess that maybe they just present themselves as a slightly different way, or maybe they're getting more governmental support, because I don't feel, probably like you guys don't get the government kind of incentives to come at your level. You might get it at the higher rise or the bigger union-based companies and that kind of thing, but we don't get it in all small, like realistically, your business is a small business, but it's a big business, right? So I don't think that it gets the same value that other larger corporations get. And you're probably working on trying to get that value, or at least present it, because it's the work is there, and that means the employees are there, but it's just like the mindset's not there from outside of the industry. And that's a shame, because if you got rid of the industry and you got rid of tradespeople in any country, you don't have a country. It doesn't move forward. That's just a fact, right? So it's just, I would love to see more respect. I mean, a dirty collar, a dirty pant, a dirty boot or whatever doesn't mean that you're less than anybody else. That's just my mindset, right? And I agree with you, totally 100% agree with you. And I'd love to kind of start the show, not necessarily upsetting the North American listeners, but I've got a huge respect for you guys, and I've got a huge respect for building that's going on in Europe and Australia, because I think there's a clear distinction between the two groups. I think here in North America, and you guys can take notes and run your hate mail on, I don't care about that. I think in North America, we have a mindset of building grand and building for people that are stuck in boxes. You guys over there have a mindset of building and respecting the land that you're building on and incorporating the box with the land. You know what I mean by that? Like, you guys will look at ways of building and look at efficiency and new technology, incorporating old and bringing it to new, and respecting all elements that are attached to a structure. Here in North America, it's what am I feeling like inside my box, and what can I share that's social media driven grandeur? You know what I mean? And I think you're missing opportunity other than just a polished looking image. When I look at your images and I look at other people that we've interviewed outside of North America, I, from construction, see those details. I pay attention to what you guys are doing that most clients and most people in North America don't really look at. Do you know what I mean by all that?
I do. Yeah, I do. And it's an excellent observation. I mean, one of the glaring things that I think drives that is, well, speaking about the UK, but the same principles in a way applies to wider Europe. We're a small piece of land with a lot of people on it. It's very dense. And on top of that, uh, our history of developing towns and cities is much longer than in North America. We've got Gothic, medieval, even further back into history, towns and cities that a lot of our sites you're working on a site that's previously been developed, or there's an existing building that you need to be mindful of. There's design constraints. Whereas in North Americas, there's still vast plains of land that is being developed, as a blank canvas that we don't have so much, both in the UK and also in wider Europe. So I think when you're approaching a construction project, there's a lot more thought into, okay, what's been here in the past? What is the built environment landscape that we need to dovetail into? what are the neighborhoods requirements, etc. I mean, the planning process is vast here, and I think that is just a symptom of we're a lot of people in a small space. There's not vast amounts of land floating around. We need to be very mindful of design application and sympathy for what was there before we came along with our ideas, which is difficult, and you've got listed buildings and conservation areas and areas of natural beauty and UNESCO World Heritage sites. And we were speaking about Australia before, not to be critical, but I remember visiting some friends in Sydney, and there's some bridge that was built in the 60s that was now a protected building. It's like back in the UK, that would be, like some sort of,
I know.
that is like modern construction. So, when you're working with towns and cities that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, you need to really get into the micro level of the design and thinking, how can we do this in a sympathetic way? And the constraints as well. You've awkward sized plots, that you need to work on, and they're not just nice square boxes. You might have obtuse angles and irregular shapes that you need to think, how can we maximize the efficiency and the value of this plot?
I love that you brought that up because I agree with you 100%. It's really about respecting the past. And that I'm sure that when you guys start a project, whether it begins on the paper stage, you guys are very respectful of the past, who came before you, and what was built before on this area, whether you're remodeling an existing structure or you're actually building something new that was on some or next to something that's existing. You guys are extremely respectful of the person that had a hand working on this project. And now you're taking it over and you're bringing it to modern times. And so that's not necessarily the case here in North America. Like you said, there's lots of land here. So all of a sudden we just start from a hole in the ground and then we go up from there. But there's not that history. So we have to be aware of all that stuff. And does that go through the whole team? Like, does the team understand that centuries ago, this is how it was built? This is the mindset that, you had tradespeople looking at certain things. Now you guys are being respectful of that person, what they did, and now I'm going to contribute to it. I'm not going to demolish it and just get rid of it. I'm going to contribute to that.
It varies. There's a balance, I think, in terms of what's sensible, because the planning policies here try and work across a vast amount of sites, locations, demographics, that it's difficult to apply one rule to all areas. One size doesn't fit all. So unfortunately, where we do have planning policies in place to protect beautiful buildings, areas of natural beauty, all these things, sometimes, arguably oftentimes, those rules fall into spaces where it just doesn't apply. So it's a love-hate thing. Sometimes it works really well. Sometimes it works really poorly. You can sometimes you have to work within constraints that is on a legislative level imposed on you, and you do think, what the hell? It's a balancing act. So I think people respect it when it works well, but it can also be a tide working against you, particularly now in today's age where you're trying to juggle, increased population density, sustainability targets, and, designing low carbon homes. There's some clashes of interests, and also just being progressive.
Yeah, it's inevitable that's going to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
It makes me think about how is the planning and permit process when you start getting the city involved, and how you're updating building envelope and you're paying attention to how structures need to be built today and new rules that they're setting in place. How are those challenges for you?
I'm not going to lie, it's probably our biggest challenge as a sector right now. There's a lot of good intention, but there's a lot of problem with, particularly in governments and local authorities, the left hand not speaking to the right hand. So
Is it
in
persuasive good intention?
Yeah, it's good intention in the sense that you've got lots of individual bodies all entering with the right intentions, but the worlds don't overlay neatly. So, you've got, on the one hand, Historic Environmental Scotland saying, right, we want to protect XYZ. Then on the other hand, you've got building control saying, well, XYZ isn't with our, net carbon sustainability plan, so you can't deliver that. And there's just lots of dissonance between different local authority departments who dictate the planning policy. Unfortunately, the net result of that is just a very slow process, and that's probably the most frustrating part. I'm sure it's the same where you are, but we're suffering from a lack of new housing being constructed. We're incredibly behind in our housing targets, and the biggest bottleneck is planning and consent approvals. And you can have stuff going round and round and round, being argued, the minutiae of this, that, and the other, where sometimes you need to think, look, this isn't a perfect world. We've got different parameters that we need to satisfy. What can we do to get this moving? Because sometimes I think it falls into the place of just being impracticable in its thought and approach. So definitely people in it for the right reasons, but the unity of these local authority and governmental departments just simply isn't there. And also local authorities are under resourced in terms of their administration power to look at applications, look at approvals, chair committees, and all the rest of it. And it's slow, man. It's really slow. We've got sites that anybody would say it's a no-brainer. And they're locked up for 2-3 years in planning before they even get to committee. And at the same time, the government's shying away from previous government's housing target policies. It's a real shame.
So is it like us where I've always had a problem with the government and the organizations that handle our approvals where there's a blanket. So based on whatever parameters have been set forth on that government and whatever the trend is at that particular term, like this is how we're going to implement it into the building techniques, right? So all of a sudden you get this blanket of restrictions that have to be put onto your structure. So now it's now on you as the business owner, the builder, to start figuring out how to answer all these questions. And the problem is that you start creating this delay when I think that there should be more done on the part of the city and the government and the building department to work with us instead of actually work against us. And for them to always go, okay, well, we understand what you're saying, but according to this, you have to do it this way. I go, that's not really answering my question. My question is, can you work with us on trying to figure out how we're going to build this one structure, which is being built for the very first time? And can I bring other players into the mix that are going to tell you things that are contradictory to what you guys have actually put in through legislation? So that's not working with us. That's working against us. And now all of a sudden we can't get a structure. We know as builders, we can get the structure out of there, out of the gate, finished, ready for an occupant at this time. And now the only thing that's stopping us is the people that don't know anything about construction. So in my opinion, get rid of the people that don't know anything about construction, replace them with people that know about construction. And how about we work together on solving the problem? And then all of a sudden timelines will be met. Am I taking crazy pills at this point? That's the thing I'm thinking, is that makes sense, but you never get construction people going into politics, and you never get politicians getting into construction. So that's the biggest hurdle at the very beginning. You're not putting the right voices in the right spots. We're trying to work with you. It's not that we're trying to work against you. We're trying to work with you. It's better for us to finish a project. It makes more sense for us to get to the end because we want to give it to an occupant, and then we can move on to the next challenge and the next project. But if you keep on tying our hands and not allowing us to do that, we get frustrated. And so then now we start getting penalized. And then there's a whole other world from there. So the show gets political sometimes. But I mean, that's just how it is. It's construction. It's just how we're going to be. But I'd love to get, I saw a lot of your work, and I total amount of respect for having no shaker panel kitchens. Shaker panel kitchens are a big thing in North America, and I don't know if you've heard the show, but a lot of people know that I can't stand shaker panel kitchens. And lots of color, lots of beautiful finishings, I just feel that North America is almost like Robinson Crusoe Island, stuck in its ways of this is the only material we're allowed to use, and I don't want to see what the rest of the world looks like. Versus you guys in the rest of the world, you guys look at the rest of the world as if, what's coming down the pipe? What's new? What's interesting? What new material, sustainability or efficiency or all kinds of stuff? I wish that some of that would just kind of seep into here. Like I would love to see people try more things. And I get it. Here in North America, it's all about the for sale sign. Is it the same way over there? I don't think it's all about the for sale sign over there.
Uh, I recognize what you're saying. I think it is somewhat about the for sale sign, but maybe that manifests in a different way. For example, like we are incredibly commercially driven. I mean, the properties have to sell. At the end, somebody needs to want them. However, I think that you know, commercialism is driven by the market, right? And it's what people will want. And I think here in the UK, people do want what's cool, what's new, what's attractive, what their neighbors don't have. You know, what's a little bit edgy. You know, we've got big design centers in Europe like London and Paris, and you know you've got and you know some areas in the Scandinavian countries which are very innovative and are coming out with new products, and people want that over here. People want the next thing, and it's a balance because you know if you're building out a development that's for the open market, you don't want something that's too wacky and nobody's going to like it, you know, because you know it's got to be tasteful or it's
Yeah.
got to be enough of a canvas that someone can make their own mark. But I think over here, um, the market is looking for something a bit
Well,
different. You know, we like innovation different, and that does get a better for sale price.
hey guys, we're back, and I'm going to show you a few more features on the Connect Team app. Let's get right into it. Start by scheduling a job, and we're going to clock in as well. So over to the screen. We go to the home page, and you go down to job scheduling, and you're going to access schedule. Today's Wednesday. We're going to add a shift. So now there's templates, there's details. We can choose one. So here's the work site. We're adding a title if we want to. We're going to let the user know who's it for. We're setting the time, what we think this shift's going to take. And now we're going to put some details if we need to put some details. Our location is obviously, we'll change it to Toronto, Ontario, Canada. There we go. We enable the user so they can use it. They can claim it. And now we're going to publish it. Boom. There it is. It's on the schedule now. My admin can go to time clock. And here we are. Time clock. Access. So now I'm on the app on my mobile. And I'm going to go to job scheduling. I'm going to accept this shift. And I'm accepting it. And open time clock. And I start. And there you go. Manny at the office, who scheduled the shift, is speaking to Manny on the job site on his phone, who's started the shift. And now I know exactly where I am. Then I see that I'm working away. And now I'm going to actually clock out. So I'm clocking out, ending the shift, and it automatically updates. There we go. I ended the shift. I know exactly what time I started. I know exactly what time I ended. That kind of gives you guys a little bit more into Connect Team app. And for more information, you can check them out at www.connectteam.com, and also check them out on IG at Connect Team app. Also, remember, try out their 14-day free trial for companies 10 employees or less. I agree with you. And am I wrong to say that for some weird reason, okay, I'm a mason guy. Like my dad was a mason, so I've always had a fondness for stone, right? You guys use a lot of stone. Am I not talking sense when I say that stone somehow gives you this warmth feeling when you enter a structure and you see elements of stone? Like, does it not,
Yeah.
doesn't it like feel warm and inviting and feel like a home to me? Like it does. And North America, we maybe get lucky, see a fireplace, and that's it. Over there, you guys are using entire walls. Like you're almost bringing the outside in, and you're using a specific kind of stone that it's just like it's been in the ground for so long, and you rip it apart and you bring it in, and now you get this beautiful mason do this work with it, and it just looks amazing. It looks so pleasing to the eye, and it just feels so emotional. I'd love to see more of that. You guys are using, I'm not talking about wackiness and crazy and extreme colors and just going ballistic that way. I think there's a nice balance, but I think if you start paying attention to woods and stones and different types of finishing and plaster techniques. And I mean, this is Scotland. You guys started all this plaster work and everything like that. It's just amazing how it's all, and there's only a handful of people here that can do it. And I mean, why can't we do more of that stuff in here? Why can't we have irregular, slight textured wall surfaces? Why does it have to be butt joints of drywall over and over? And I don't like, I think people are missing opportunities of square footage space and not really using what's on the easel. You know what I mean? Like they're not paying attention to what's available in the building sense of things. That's what I'm missing. And I'd love to see more of it. I've always butted heads here because I'm always being told that, no, clients don't want that. But then it's really funny. Like you guys are on House and a lot of people are on House and Pinterest. Everybody looks at it, but they don't want it in their home. That makes no sense to me. If we look at it and we appreciate it and we travel and we see other people and what they've done in other structures in other countries, why can't we take that and bring it? I do it all the time. I constantly do it. Like, I'm sorry. I was looking at your page and your work and I was making mental notes. I was like, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. So it's like, and I know more tradespeople do that as well. So, I mean, I was curious about all that stuff because it's just, it seems like you guys, have you found the right clients that appreciate that? Or is it like you guys are kind of educating the clients that this is where we should go?
A bit of both. I mean, I'm sure lots of people will in the trade will appreciate that finding the right clients is critical to a project. You know, it's working with the people that share your vision and whatnot. I think another element of it is what you're describing is our heritage here, and it sort of stems back to our discussions on planning policy and the built environment and how, you know, we are mandated to construct using certain materials and methodologies that are in keeping with the surrounding context. So, you know, if you're building the city of Edinburgh, where we are, you know, in the old town, or you know, where you've got rubble sandstone and you kind of Scottish slate roofs and all this, you can't just go whack a white render box in the middle of that. You know, the council just won't let you get away
No,
with
of
it.
course not. Yeah.
And we've also got, I guess, a heritage of tradespeople that understand these trades and understand how to do it. You know, they're generational subcontractors, and they didn't just read out of the book. You know, we've got stonemasons who, they learn, down a linear chain of generations of stonemasons and still understand traditional techniques, which you can't learn from a textbook. And you'll understand as a mason, there's so many nuances in working with stone and doing it correctly and doing it incorrectly, and you can destroy pieces of stone by using the wrong mortars or renders or materials. It can ruin it, and I think there's a bit more of an appreciation for that here. And also, I think one thing that we pride ourselves with as a company that maybe sets us a little bit apart is I'm a believer in giving a certain level of autonomy to our tradespeople. So it's not just like there's the specifications, there's the drawings, follow it to the letter or else. Look, here's the drawings. This is our guideline. This is our parameters. But you know what? We've got highly skilled tradespeople that will have some design contribution to bring through their experiences, and we're all about celebrating that. So if we've got a stonemason, a joiner, a carpenter, or whatever trade it might be that says, I've done this before, I've done that before, and it works really well, and I think it would work well here. We like to support that, and we'll go to our client and say, look, I know we're not specified here, but we think this would be a good value add. We think this would contribute for such and such reasons, and we'd like to do it. That's often well respected and well received. And I think, and again, in today's age where a lot of architecture over the past 10, 20 years has been about the white boxes, the steel frames, glass, exterior envelopes, modern cladding. People like a bit of that organic touch, the stone, the timber, it's different materials. As you said it, they're warm, and people, it's like an old, like dead simple terms. Like if you've got a kitchen with a nice slab of hardwood as a worktop, whoever walks into that kitchen, the first thing they're going to do is walk over it and run their hand over it, no matter who you are.
100%.
That's not the same if it's composite stone or if it's, a chipboard, with veneer on it. It's
You know what they'll do with
whoever you
you know what
are.
they'll do with the stone, the composite stone? They'll just take a picture.
Yeah, there you
That's
go. Yeah,
that's the
there you go.
difference. The difference is that if we build with our hearts and our passion and we're using materials that are more earthly, you'll want to touch. And then if you're
Yeah,
using more of this manufactured sense of material, you'll want to photograph. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's the basic difference between construction. And
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
me personally, I always want to touch when I'm going to a supplier and I want to see, or I go to a trade show and I want to see what's new. I will touch it and I will judge my opinion on it by the touch and what I experience from it. I don't
yeah,
care about the photograph. I'm sorry, I don't. I'll care about the photograph later on. But for me
yeah,
to understand it and implement it and convince a client or work with tradespeople on it, we all have to be
yeah.
touching. That's it. It's just like, I
Absolutely.
think it makes a lot of sense. I love that you brought that up. I look at your team and I just get the sense that your team, yeah, there's some dirt on their uniforms. You know what I mean? Their workwear. I get it because they're working. Not every job, task, or whatever is pristine clean. But I get a sense that they have a sense of pride by putting on that workwear and doing the job. Is that the case amongst the team, the tradies, and everybody?
Yeah, I think I'd be hard pushed to single out someone in our team that doesn't care about their job. They might not say it in such a way, but it's demonstrated in their work and the output. And that's I think anybody has that capacity, and it's all about the environment, right? If you could take one tradesperson and chuck them on a 250 unit new build site producing a bunch of cardboard boxes that are all identical, and they're going to hate their day.
Yeah.
Put that same tradesperson, on a bespoke build or one-off build or just a nicely designed build. They won't help themselves, but sort of get caught up in the pride and of what they're doing. And again, it sort of stems back. We do like to give a bit of autonomy. Obviously, things need to be done within specifications, safely, following building code, etc. But you know, giving a tradesperson the ability to make a piece of work, have their signature in there somewhere, brings out pride. They'll go home, they'll talk to their family about what they did today. Oh, I did this, or they'll take pictures themselves and
Yeah.
show off what they've done, and that warms my heart. Is when we I don't know if you see it in your line of work, but we see it where a lot of our guys get in a very friendly way competitive with one another.
Yep.
Like
Yep. We see
check
that.
out the miter that I put on this, or check out the scribe that I ran today, or and that warms my heart because you can't not be proud of your work if you're exemplifying those types of characteristics. And sure, yeah, we're a bit muddy and we're a bit gruff. I mean, at the end of the day, we're builders.
Yep.
Um, you know, it's you can't shy away from that. But look, the proof of the pudding's in the eating, and the
Listen,
product speaks for itself.
there's 8 to 10 hours in each day. It can't all be about just like the perfect scribe, the perfect whatever.
Yeah,
There's got to be a
no,
little bit of
no,
jabbing going on in here. Like there's always a little bit
yeah,
of jabbing between trades, and I've always said over and
yeah,
over on the show that everybody's equal on the job. Like there's no one trade that's far superior than another. I don't care what one will tell me or whatever. I will always treat everybody equally. So we're all
yeah,
collective. We're a
yeah,
team, and so it starts with one trade and it ends with another trade, and we all have to work together to accomplish this. So the jabbing
absolutely.
is totally fine to have the jabbing. I'd love to get a sense from you guys. I've got an idea. What tool brand is the team working with? Is there a particular color that comes out of the woodwork, or are they? I'm just curious.
Yeah, you talk about putting the cat amongst the pigeons. That's. I mean, look, we've all got our preferences, and
It's a mixed bag.
what
Then it's got to be a mixed bag with so many people.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
there's certain things that just don't fly. Obviously,
yeah.
there's certain I won't name any names, but there's certain colors that if you see in someone's toolbox, they'll quickly be sent on their way. And
You you won't
we
have the most
have
pleasant day, I guess.
yeah, we have literally sent tradespeople away within half an hour of them turning up to work based on the tools that they have. Because sometimes you can just tell.
I love
It's not
that.
it's not just about the brands. Sometimes they're too clean, sometimes they're straight
Yes,
out of the packet,
yes.
So speaking, I'm a joiner to trade, a carpenter to trade. I was always a DeWalt fanboy. That was always my thing.
Yeah.
But I respect others. Makita. uh, was another one I got into. Hilti. I was never posh enough to get into Fez Tool, but I had a lot of respect for the Fez Tool guys. But yeah, look, it's whatever works for you. You know,
Yes, 100%.
you'll get a bit of stick from somebody no matter what you turn up with. But that's part of the fun.
I'd love for you to share some of the business tools that you've learned, some of the techniques that you've learned to build your brand, and it's only getting better, I guess, over the years, right? Like I'm sure you guys are already thinking far ahead into the future, what's going to be happening, and who's going to be coming on board and contributing, and who's already there and already coming up with great ideas outside of yourself. What are some of the ideas that you guys are working on regarding the business side, not just the swinging the hammer side?
Yeah, that's a massive question, and there's so much. I mean, you said it yourself. I mean, it all starts with a vision. You know, big believer in having a vision for the business, even if it changes. I mean, ours certainly does. Ours changes once or twice a year. You know, through experience, something will happen, and we'll change tact, which is fine. But you know, you've got to have something to be your north star at the very least to get you going in a certain direction. So we're constantly refining our model. We are one thing that we're doing as a business is we're looking to diversify our revenue models. I mean, it's not to get too serious about it, but you got to be pulling revenue,
Of
otherwise you
course,
don't
it's
have
a
a business to
business.
talk
Yes, of
about.
course.
So you know, we've just gone through COVID pandemic, hyperinflation, and material costs more than anything else. We're looking at a diminishing labor supply across the industry. There's a lot of challenges, and we'd be naive to say that things will just keep on idling on as they have been. So we're looking at getting to new sectors. For the first time, we're having discussions about entering into public frameworks. So we'll you know tendering for government contracts, local authority contracts, something that we've never done before. We've always worked in the private sector where we enjoy working with passionate clients or commercially minded clients, higher margins. You know, you can't ignore that.
Yep.
But you know, we're a business we want to be here for the long run. You know, we're not just a flash in the pan. So we're certainly looking at opening up our models. So that's one area. Another area that we've been working on for the past 3 to 4 years now is development. So we've been buying land, we've been developing land for ourselves, working with different funding partners and investors, and we're now procuring land. We're developing ourselves, delivering stuff to the market. So we're ramping up that side quite fast. We're always going to remain principal contractors as our heart and soul of the business. That's what we do, and we do very well. But I think just what we've learned over the past couple of years is things can change fast, you know,
Yeah.
and if you're not agile, if you don't have options, i.e., you can't be too much in a niche. I mean, I remember when I started the business, everybody was talking about you got to have a niche, you got to be the specialist at something, and this, that, and the other. And they're the ones that I think have suffered the most recent. You know, you need to be agile. You need to be able to flex with the winds rather than snap off at a single gust. And that's one thing that we're looking to build in. Other than that, we're pretty boring. You know, I think some of the best businesses are the most boring businesses. You're just finding what you do well and doing more of it. You know, we're looking after the numbers, we're looking after the team, making sure that we're selecting the right contracts, working with the right clients. We're being ever more and more selective with who we'll work for. And I don't mean that in a pretentious way. It's more just we're suited to certain clients better than others. And there's other clients that you'd be better off with XYZ Contractors Limited, not us. You
Yep.
know, it's not personal.
Yep.
So getting more familiar with our marketplace identity and doing more work in there. So that I mean that's the sort of overarching concepts. You know, branding. We need to get back into that. We've sort of let that go for the past couple of years. We've been fortunate that we've not really had to try hard to win work. You know, we've got to a place where stuff comes our way, irrespective. But maybe that's allowed us to be a bit too relaxed on our branding and marketing fronts. We're going to pick that up again and do more community outreach stuff. One thing that we're really investing a lot of time in bettering our knowledge and expertise is sustainable construction.
Yep.
We're looking around us, and we recognize that the construction sector is the biggest contributor to carbon emissions, and we want to ensure that as a business we're acting responsibly, and the things that we're building have longevity in mind. It's shocking. I was at a conference a few months ago with some of the national house builders, and they're talking about we build a house with a 50-year lifespan or a 6-year lifespan. I'm sitting there going, man, this is miserable. Particularly like growing up in Scotland, where I'm sitting in a building right now that was built in the 1600s, and it's just as good today as it was then. And
Exactly.
to talk about houses to have a 56-year
50
lifespan
year.
just depresses me.
Ours is worse. Don't, Charlie, trust me, ours is worse. You probably get lucky to 25 to 30 years you get that before it
Really,
starts to fall apart. It's just there's I think you're given the keys, and on the keys you could probably engrave the expiration date on that house. That's how sad it is here, which I
yeah,
totally agree with
yeah,
you, that it's like, why don't we have this mindset that we can build for centuries, not for
yeah,
decades, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's interesting how I give you a bunch of kudos to try to fight those sustainability battles, because there's so many people on that front. And the unfortunate thing is that there's a lot of brands out there that mean well and they're coming out with great products. But I've always said it on the show over and over, there isn't one brand on its own that can cover the entire dwelling. I don't believe that all their products are a surefire bullseye hit on taking care of every single aspect of sustainability. And I go back to, just like construction, we have to work together. We have to use a mixed bag of materials, mixed bag of brands to make that dwelling work properly and be efficient, right? So, but then you go back and you fight the marketing machine of what they want to do. It's like, we've got a product for that and we got a product for that. And I'm like, yes and no. I will agree and I'll disagree. But no, it's and I'm conscious of that too. So I know you guys are, I guess, doing the construction homework to try to figure out what's next, right? And I'd love to find out if have you built your own home? Yeah.
No, it's. Oh, I've talked about that for years. Interestingly enough, I've looked at plots. We've acquired plots. As I said, we're developers, and there's one plot that we sort of acquired to build prime residence with, and we've ended up just putting planning in to do some apartments that we can sell on. It's that classic thing, the what was it about,
The
the
shoemaker.
landscapers, gardeners, the most
Yeah,
weedy,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's that, when you're out all day building other people's houses, it's the last thing in your mind when you come home. But it's definitely on the radar. I think I'll probably do it more than once in my lifetime. I've got a bit of OCD about me. I know that the second I open the door of something I've built myself, I'll already have 2,000 ideas about what I'd want to improve on or do different. So, but you know what? I find that fun as well. So it's definitely on the radar. Probably not for the next few years because we've just got so much to
Yep.
do for other people and to grow the business and to, we've got a really heavy pipeline that we need to deliver, and that's where my attention is right now. But I do, on a Sunday afternoon when I'm finding a rare moment to unwind and have a cold beer, the mind naturally wanders
Yeah.
off, to
Yeah.
such things. So it'll definitely be there sometime.
It's gonna always be there, and I'm pretty sure I always see people that are builders build their own home, and they've always classically made the same mistakes that we tell our clients to not make. It's just
Yeah,
ingrained. I don't know if it's stamped on the drawings or what have you, but it's just like, it's going to happen that you'll make these mistakes, which is great. But I think right now, just stay in the R&D phase where build for other people, pick little pieces that you like, and then go, you know
yeah,
what, that's going to go towards my building when I actually
yeah,
do it. And that's what we do. But at
yeah,
some point, you're going to have to figure out, all right, let's do this. Let's just get it done. And you're right,
yeah,
100%. You'll get it done, and as soon as it's done, you'll want to build another one at that point,
yeah,
and you just move
yeah,
on from there.
yeah.
Are you getting it? I'm not surprised that you guys are going through the same hurdles that we go through here. We're very similar, other than your hot being on the right side and our hots being on the left side. That's the only difference, basically. But we're all the same in construction. Are you hearing from clients that the numbers are getting high? What traits people are asking for are getting high? Construction's getting expensive. Are we
Yeah.
seeing that capitalistic kind of mindset from the pandemic has just stayed and not disappear, and then clients come around to you asking you to somehow save money when realistically it's their home, it's their property, and it's their benefit towards the end? So it's just construction costs. So trades, like, the numbers are getting up there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's I I I don't know where it stems from. You got to think someone's making a buck somewhere, but we talk to merchants, we talk to subcontractors, we talk to different companies, and everybody's going through the same thing. Homeowners, I mean, what was obvious before is no longer obvious. Like a small example, it's not something that we do really, but like 5 years ago, to do a loft conversion was a no-brainer for a homeowner. You spend X amount of money, but that value and some, it goes on to the equity within your home, so you're making money essentially. And that the housing market here at least hasn't quite caught up. So house prices are leveling off, but the cost to build is up. So lots of clients are just being hesitant. If nothing else, they're maybe saying, well, I'm going to park this right now, maybe
Yep.
come back to it in a couple of years once I understand what's happening. Everybody's just a little bit unsure. And I mean, nobody's got a crystal ball, and anybody that professes to have a crystal ball is probably full of BS. But if you look ahead and versus looking back, I mean, our industry is incredibly cyclical, right? There's ups, there's downs, but you know, the only normal thing is the sort of long term view or the macro view of a steady trajectory. So we're not trying to get too caught up in the minutia of what's happening right now. We're listening to our clients. We're trying to work with them. We're certainly having to spend a lot more time doing value engineering discussions than we have before. We are having a lot of prices knocked back. So about 4 or 5 years ago, probably 80% of our bids were accepted. We always had a very strong success rate. Now we're at about 25%.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's definitely taken a downturn. And you've got to work with clients. I mean, we're one thing we're doing is we're trying to move more into a space of negotiated tender rather than price-based tender. So we're trying to sort of demonstrate our value as a contractor. It's not just about the price; it's about the service that you get, the quality of work. The race to the bottom stuff we don't really get involved in, and you try and find a place where it's taxed. But at the end of it, there's still houses to be built. There's still a huge shortage. There's still a market-driven demand. So stuff still has to be done, and we're looking at alternative ways of adding value. So whether it's taking another look at appraising a site to get the most value out of it, whether it's looking at material choices, methods of construction. I don't know where you are, but modern methods of construction is a big hot topic right now, and we're investing a lot of time into exploring that, what we can do to shorten build programs, reduce preliminary costs, for example, to squeeze things in. But yeah, you can only do so much. If the price of bricks doubled, if the price of plywood's
Yeah.
doubled, if
Yeah.
there's only so much you can actually do to recoup some of that. And I think the market is just due a bit of a correction. It's not instant. There's a residual hangover period whereby costs go up, but the market price isn't yet reflected for X number of months or possibly over a year. So we're just sort of hanging out for things to find a new normal. Hopefully, there's no more world disasters that chucks us into another spin. But yeah, you can only do what you can do, and we're just trying to focus on finding the right clients, finding a section of the market that's still a demand. Definitely, the B2C stuff is really almost non-existent here. Like
Wow.
home improvements and extensions and that sort of stuff is really really dead, I think. But we don't do much of that sector. We'll only do it on certain instances where we've got a reason to. And I feel for a lot of those companies, those home renovation companies, those loft conversion companies, those extension companies. I think they're really suffering more than most.
It's interesting you say that because a lot of guys here, that's what's keeping them afloat, those smaller projects,
Interesting.
right? Because,
Interesting.
and I'm going back to your 80 to 25% connection where that 55% is not about you guys losing the contract to another contractor or another company.
Yeah.
It's about clients not pulling the trigger and moving
Yeah.
forward with the job. So it's that's what's happening here is where they don't want to move forward on a large scale project because the numbers start getting into high seven figures, and all of a sudden you're like, the client doesn't want to do it. So then they say, well, let's just do a little bit of here so we can expand our kitchen, we can
Sure.
expand the back. So a lot of businesses here are surviving that way while they weather the storm until things kind of level off and go back to normal, where you get client coming back at and submitting drawings and moving forward with a full scale project, right?
Mhm.
It is a little scary, but I mean, it's like that's what construction. If anybody who's getting into it, you got to understand that it's never going to be a constant climb up. There's always going to be valleys down, and then you've got to work your way and try to figure it out. And especially when you've got a bigger company and you've got a lot of employees, mouths to feed, you have to anticipate that and work with that and try to figure out. So it's great that you started discussing options of trying to figure out other revenue streams and looking at other options and working with other organizations. So that's 100% valuable in this industry. Hey guys, we're back, and I'm going to show you a few more features on the Connect Team app. Let's get right into it. Now we're going to fill out a form. We got plenty of forms in construction. So over to the main page, we're going to add a new form. Use a template. Safety is big, so let's do a safety form. Start this template. We're going to look at the grocery list here of things that we want our employee to know about. We're going to save that. And then we're going to select users that we're going to send this to. So we're going to send it. Manny's going to send it to Manny. And then we can publish it now. We can schedule the publish. We can notify the employees. We can do some updates. We can show on the feed. We can send a reminder. And we can even remove it from the schedule. So now we're going to send it. And now my asset's ready. It's being confirmed. I'm on the main page here on my app. I'm going to go to assets. I'm going to see that there's a new form under forms. I'm going to say yes to the hard hat. I'm going to say yes to the steel toe, tool belt, safety vest, protective glasses. I could always add something if I needed to. I'm going to confirm. And then I could also take a selfie and I can sign off and I can send it off to them, or they may need me to sign. So there's a signature, save, send it off, successfully sent. Got it. And now back to admin at the office. And he just acknowledged that he filled out those forms, signed it, sent it, submitted, and that's it. And then you can also see who else didn't submit it and how many entries there were. So I'm communicating with my whole team without ever communicating with my whole team. That kind of gives you guys a little bit more into Connect Team app. And for more information, you can check them out at www.connectteam.com and also check them out on IG at Connect Team app. Also, remember, try out their 14-day free trial for companies 10 employees or less.
Yeah, yeah, you've got to. Otherwise, you're not going to have a business to talk about or have visions for or have ideas for. At the end of the day, if your revenue is not right, your business is finished.
It's
That's
finished
that's
at
the
that point. Yeah.
brutal truth.
I'd love to, can you give us some insight on who's the oldest guy on the crew or that you're working with, and who's the youngest guy or girl? Like, how far does the range go? Because I know that you guys are hardworking, so it's going to be hard to kind of tell a tradesperson to stop. Like, stop, go home and just relax and go enjoy your life or something like that. No, I can keep on going. So how old are we getting there, and how young are we?
We were literally the full range. I mean, I won't single people out because I'll never hear the end of it. But we've got tradespeople in their 60s. We've got tradespeople, well, apprentices and school leaver age, 15, 16 years old. In the office, we've got interns who are late teenagers, early 20s, and we've got, senior management staff who are, 1 or 2 years off of retirement. Some are already semi-retired, so we're really the full breadth, and that's also, I think, a deliberate thing. If you're too young, yeah, your sites are bustling with energy and everybody's jumping up and down with excitement and all the rest of it, but you need those old heads that have been there, done that. They've got the knowledge. They can nudge people in the right direction. They've seen sticky situations before, know how to unstick them.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, if it was all just old heads, then you'd see a lot of standing around on your job sites without a lot of stuff getting done. So we try and deliberately keep it well balanced. It's something you got to be mindful of, and I think that also creates quite a happy work environment. The banter is good. The different age groups bounce off of each other well. The
Yes.
younger guys like to have the more experienced guys to learn off of. The older guys like to have the younger guys to do the heavy lifting. It's just a good synergy to have.
I totally agree. I'd love for you to get down the path of some specific details that you guys have built that you enjoyed doing. That just came to the I guess to the top where it's like that was actually challenging. We pulled it off. Are there anything that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a project that isn't a love hate, because every project has its you know issues and problems and all the rest of it, and if you're not careful, you can fixate on that, and it sort of gives you a disillusion in your view of the project. But we've had some real fun ones. We've done settings conversions, we've done new builds. We've recently completed a real challenging one, which was an old single-story bank building on the corner of a high street that we built 2 stories on top of as residential, whilst maintaining the ground floor exterior envelope and facade
How
on
were
a
the
busy high
engineering
street.
conversations on that?
Say that again, sorry.
How were the engineering conversations on that? Because that's
Oh,
that's always a massive headache when it starts to come about the amount of weight that's going to be put on an existing
yeah.
footing. And I just I'm not an engineer. I don't have a stamp. I don't have the letters, but I just like I think that especially with you guys and either older structures here in Toronto, it could handle it. It could handle it, but I guess it just becomes a can of worms.
The annoying thing is it can handle it. You know that intuitively because these are buildings that have been around for a long time and not been anywhere. But asking a bloody engineer to write their name on an existing building is just never going to happen. They won't sign anything off that they didn't design. So you always end up essentially building a new structure that's isolated from the existing structure, which isn't fun and has its challenges. So that particular one went through a few iterations. Originally it was going to be micropiling. Well, it's not a particularly big footprint. It was about 2,000 square foot in footprint, so not a huge site. And originally, from memory, the design was 32 micropiles and several ton of steel, and all the rest of it. And this thing, the existing
Wow.
building was built like a tank. If there was a nuclear war, I knew exactly where I was heading. But I mean, and it was an old bank, right? So it had a vault, and reinforced concrete, internal partitions. The thing was nuts. And it ended up turning into a transfer deck. We did get away from micropiling, and we convinced the engineers to allow us to do a mass fill concrete found, so low density concrete, just as sort of ground buoyancy. But we ended up putting in, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was around about 150 cube of concrete into the ground
Wow.
on a 2,000 square foot footprint site. So
But
it was ridiculous.
the transfer of load, did you lose a lot of area on the lower floors?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Okay.
We were able to do some sort of space engineering exercises. So I mentioned there that there was a vault.
Yeah.
Uh, we actually asked the engineers if we could make that structural. So we ended up using the existing vault as a sort of structural tie that reduced the amount of columns, and then the rest was sort of moving. We actually had to sort of look at the design of the upper stories and the structural points to design the upper stories, the new build that in such a way that it wouldn't impact the existing ground floor too much. So trying to line up structural walls with the existing walls on the ground floor so that we're not having to reintroduce random columns in the middle of rooms
Yeah,
and things like
yeah.
that. So it was a challenge. Definitely worth spending the time in that pre-construction phase to have these discussions. Um, but
I guess the only saving grace on a project like that is the city isn't really all that involved at that point. It's really the engineer is driving that boat at that point,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, and that's when it's having good architects, good engineers on your team is so important. There's so many design teams that'll just force you down the easiest option route, and you need to sort of dig your heels in a bit and say, no, we've got a commitment to stewarding the success of this project and ensuring that the end user is going to have the best space that they can. It'd be what we do is permanent, right? Or at least it's supposed to be. And it's easy to make poor decisions. So it's worth spending that bit of time at the beginning, working with the right design team. We've got another one right now that we're in pre-construction phase, which is a listed Catholic school building right in the city centre of Edinburgh that we're doing a conversion project into 38 apartments. And it's like there's so many places you could just make a poor decision,
Yeah.
without thinking about it, you really have to force yourself to picture the space and almost walk through it in your mind's eye and imagine how things are going to look so you're not leaving a negative impact on the end use just by making a poor decision. So yeah, I find a lot of pleasure in working with older traditional buildings versus new build. I think new builds, if it's ground up, you're not inheriting any challenges, whereas traditionally it forces you to have to be a bit more creative and problem solving. So yeah, those are my more stressful projects. I definitely sleep less on those ones, but the satisfaction is far greater, I think.
I agree with you totally. I've always been that mindset. It's like new construction, new engineering, joist and lumber and whatever it is, right? It's just, yeah, it's kind of looks nice. It's pretty. It's great. No, but I actually enjoyed the conversation of construction, trying to figure out how do we tackle this, how it was done, how should we tackle it, and bring in a bunch of minds that contribute to that conversation and come up with really good ideas and then achieve
Yeah.
it. So it's great that you guys are doing that. I like that a lot. I want to get from you, what are clients asking for design wise these days? What are kitchens looking like? What are bathrooms looking like? What are just the spaces in general looking like for them?
Oh, it changes so much. Like, I mean, a couple of years, like 2, 3 years ago, it was all about like being neutral and beiges and uh, matte black ironmongery and sanitary goods was all the thing. And now suddenly it's all about color and patterns and texture. Like it's honestly, I full disclosure, I've got the design capability of a brick. Like I'm not a design person. Like ask me to build something, sure, but ask me to pick a color choice, you're asking the wrong person. But it is fun to observe. Yeah, we're seeing like now just a lot of patterns, a lot of colors is suddenly came back. So I don't know what's on trend and what's off trend. We're seeing open spaces being more and more popular. So open plan living kitchen and less rooms but bigger rooms is so I'm saying a lot more attention outdoor space is another one. Even if it's in an urban environment, balcony space, terrace space, patio space is important. I don't know if that's something maybe inherited from the COVID pandemic and
Yep.
people appreciating the outdoors more. So that's something that's getting a lot more design attention. I mean, a lot of our clients are developers, and developers usually have a very narrow bandwidth for what they're looking for, and it's usually density, like how many apartments can I cram into this space or whatever it is. But again, I think that's opening up a bit more that people buying properties, like homeowners, are more aware themselves of what they want. So I think that developers are getting away with a lot less now. Longevity of materials, I think, is is becoming more and more on people's radar. So they want products they're not going to have to swap out in 5 years' time. They're looking for, aluminium window frames and, hard wearing countertops and engineered floor versus laminate floor, and like all that stuff. I think is I think I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, but I
Yeah,
think
it's
the
exactly, yeah.
homeowners are a lot more educated now than maybe they once were, and they're coming into the space already knowing the pitfalls. And then obviously, uh, last but not least, by any means, is energy consumption. Like
Yep.
how a space is heated, how efficient is that? What's the running costs? What's the life cycle costs? That's huge now, and you sort of said it before. There's no, well, I we're seeing the same thing as you, is that there's no real one-stop shop or one product fits all solution, and there's so many experts out there, but they typically just are salesmen, that are
Yes.
just trying to draw you towards a particular product. But that's again is massive, is energy usage, and actually on the back end of that, an interesting thing that we're seeing more recently, we've not seen as much as some of the other things talked about, but we're hearing it more and more with our design team discussions and conferences that we go to, but is uh, the healthiness of a home.
Yep.
So
We're slowly
off
seeing that.
gassing,
Yeah.
yeah,
We're slowly seeing that.
off gassing, paint choices, is huge. Ventilation, air quality. That's a really interesting thing. It's actually quite a new thing for us. So we're having to spend a lot of time getting ourselves up to speed with what technologies are available, what products are available, and you can see it, right? Like the modern day consumer is across the board is a lot more health conscious. So why wouldn't that transfer into the home where you spend most of your time and you sleep? So that's quite interesting, and yeah, I do get quite geeky about these things. So I selfishly enjoy having to spend nights researching things and reading up on different products that are available on the market.
We've done a couple of shows with Linda Kafka, and the shows have all been about wellness living. So there's just
Interesting.
like color temperature of lights, the amount of sunlight that you actually allow into the dwelling, getting
Yeah.
skylight sunlight coming in through the dwelling, right? Like that's just materials that are being used, and just placements of rooms and how rooms are being worked with, and like you said, having spaces that open up to the outdoors, and having those, and even in an urban setting, you can still build a slightly small garden of green that will help you just to be in and around that space. So it's just, I think that's what happened with the funny 2 years that we had, where it's like people started realizing their homes were not really safe for themselves. They needed to
Mm-hmm.
expand from there. But it goes back to that there's a lot of salespeople that are kind of selling this and selling that. And I think that everybody just needs to do their own homework. And I agree with you that the clients are educated almost to the point where I've said it, they're overeducated. And I think that they're just getting way too many messaging from too many resources, when I think you should just pick your top 3 or 4 professionals and speak to them. Because I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you that if you're having a conversation with your family, your friends, or you're out and about, or whatever the story is, your phone is eavesdropping on your conversation, then you're going to start seeing ads for certain things that are going to be contributed to what you need to get for
Yeah.
your home, which is great. But I don't think Amazon or Siri or any of those can build a home. I'm sorry to say, I don't
Yeah.
think they'll ever get to the point where it can build a home. I think it's still the person, the tradesperson, the company,
Yeah.
and the people that are involved. They can build a home. And I would wish that clients would listen to the professionals. They
Yeah.
do it for every aspect of their lives, but they don't do it for construction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like we're not performers, we're professionals. That's just, I
Mm-hmm.
would really wish that they would respect that angle. But yeah, we're on the same page, Charlie. We're totally on the same page.
Absolutely.
We're getting close to the end, but I mean, I want to just talk about 2 things that you could probably shed some light on. I know the unfortunate thing is that I feel you guys are far more in tune with safety and PPE than we are. I think we're behind. I think we should take lessons from other countries like yourselves and other people And I think that there should always be a lot more because I've always said it over and over on the show that being a tradesperson is a perishable career.
Yeah.
There's an expiration on it. And if you don't work well and proper and protect yourself, you'll have these issues later on, whether they're breathing, sight, hearing, just joints, pains, all that stuff. So I know that you guys are very aware of all that stuff, and it's good to see that there's more awareness in people discussing it on the job site, off the job site, part of the culture, part of the business. It's part of your brand. It's part of the design and construction. It's part of everything. If you want to just shed some light on that and how you guys handle that.
Yeah, look, we're all human beings with families to go home to and lives to live. If if I mean, just for like, there's no space in health and safety that we won't invest as much as we can. Like we go all out and some. That's just our flat out policy. I want everybody to who comes to work to go home afterwards. I want everybody that comes to work with 10 digits to go home with 10 digits. That's it. And if that investment over the life cycle of our business just meant that one person had a longer life, or one person got more years in retirement after working so long, worth it. Absolutely worth it. And we can talk about so many areas of the sector, but I think there's one area that just matter of factly you just don't hesitate to go all in is health and safety. And we really do, and we try and instill a culture of that, so it's driven from the bottom up. And it's about education
Yep.
first and foremost. So I think that the best place to invest is in training for the guys on sites, for the site managers, for the office staff, for the administration staff, so everybody is aware of the risks, the type of risks, the dangers, and the best way to mitigate those. And look, it's difficult, and it's an evolving sector equally as much as it's progressing, has evolving risks and evolving challenges. And I'm proud to say that in at least speaking from the UK and from what I've seen, the sector has came a long way, which is refreshing to see. You know, even when I was an apprentice, the things have changed, and I chat to the guys that have been doing this a lot longer than I have, and the stories make your hair stand on end. And yeah, we just flat out helps it. And a lot of it is mindset as well, because you can be too scared, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So you need to, when you're training guys, a lot of it is about training them to be confident at their job. You can't be scared, you can't be timid, you need to be in control and all the rest of it. So yeah, just correct PPE, correct training, correct education. It's the other thing as well is it's not rocket science,
No.
health and safety. Like there's no excuse.
Yeah.
The training's there, the support's there, the resources are there. Anybody that's not operating up to modern day standards in health and safety, they've got no excuse. Like there's no person that can say, well, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. It's your damn job to know this stuff.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, something that we've uh, been really down the rabbit hole of recently, and are still continuing to discover new things and new challenges that we need to adopt with, is mental health in
Yeah.
construction.
Yep.
Uh, I was shocked when we started to engage in the discussions as to, well, to learn that in the UK at least, the construction sector still holds the highest suicide rate in the UK. It accounts for more occupational uh, deaths than any other occupational deaths, working from heights, whatever it might be. Suicide rates is still the highest. And we started to engage in the discussion seriously in our company 4 years ago, and we got some support from some local organizations and charities that specialize in this sector. And you know what? I was just amazed with the feedback that we see from our guys who we knew, like, construction sector, the stereotype is we're all burly men,
Yeah.
macho environment, we're in control of ourselves, boisterous and all the rest of it. God, the things that opened up, the discussions that were had, people talking about their experiences and how they felt and the situations have been. I mean, it was, yeah, it was shocking,
Yeah.
like, and so I think that's something that the sector still has a long way to come. It's less obvious, it's not as simple as just putting on the correct PPE and having the
No.
correct RAMs, risk assessments, method statements in place. It is a little bit more of a grey area. One thing that we've found just gets you uh, the most percentage adage in terms of effectiveness in approaching the topic is just making it okay to talk about.
Yeah.
We've made it less of a taboo
Yeah.
just by talking about it more in our sector. We do toolbox talks on it. We've invited keynote speakers from organizations to come in, and we bring all the guys into our offices and we sit them down and we have a conversation about it. We encourage the site managers to watch out for certain signs and characteristics in somebody. We've put our staff through mental health first aider training to, again, be trained to look out for early warning signs and what action should be taken, because it's not easy. It's not something, at least for me, that's intuitive. And if you're sitting around in the gaff and at break time, at your peace time, nobody's talking about their
No.
emotions and feelings.
No.
That's not the topic that happens. But my goodness, is it overwhelming to see how much people do open up when you make it okay to talk about it, when you have some open discussions and people come back. So yeah, so I'm going off on a tangent, but health and safety, my
No, it's
understanding of
it's
it
it's it's
has
I'm
broadened a
glad
lot.
that you did, Charlie, because we've actually here on the show we've done a number of shows on mental health. We've had therapists on the show. We've had discussion panels. It wasn't hard to get guests to come onto the show to actually open up, and they actually respected it and they appreciated it. It's just how you said it just if the conversation can begin, it gives
Yeah,
them an opportunity to kind of contribute, and then they realize that they're not alone because they're
yeah,
not, and then it's just a matter of finding the right person to open up to. But there's a lot of that going on, and you're 100% right. This is construction. We're big broadly men, and we shouldn't have these problems, and I'm sorry, but we all have these problems. Everybody, man or women, we all have these problems. So construction, it's never been discussed upon, so we actually we're conscious of it here at the show, and we're going to continue doing more and more shows about it, and we're going to be bringing it up, and the panel shows have been doing really well, where we invite them in a nice environment where we bring up real issues. We do talk about suicide, we talk about anxiety and depression, and we talk about what's really going on professionally and personally, what's happening in their homes and what's happening on the job site. And I think that there's a lot of lending ears out there. I think a lot of people are more than willing to help out. And the one great thing that I would say about this one show is that you're getting complete strangers speak to each other over text or over DMs. They've never met each other, but they're speaking to each other openly about what's really going on in their lives. And they're just digitally communicating, which is amazing. And then eventually they plan on getting a coffee together or get a pint together or whatever it is. But they'll sit down, and it's no longer a handshake at that point. It's literally a hug. And it's not a negative thing. It's not. It's a positive thing, and it's helping out, because you're 100% right on the suicide rate. It's really
yeah,
devastating to hear that. When I first discovered it years ago, I was devastated by that, because I never saw it on my job sites, but I knew of it. And then
mm,
I start this show, and I'm like, you know what? I've created a platform. Let's talk about it. We can talk about Swing and Hammer. We can make fun about other brands and tool brands and all that stuff like that. And we can have our jabs at each other, but we're still human beings, and we need to communicate. We need to just, like you said, is you want to go home, but you also want to go home mentally as well.
yeah,
Like, you really got to
yeah.
prepare yourself. So it wasn't a negative tangent to go off to Charlie. It was actually a perfect tangent. I really appreciate that you'd said that and brought that up. I want to do the 10 questions with you for construction. And then I just want to let everybody know we're talking to Charlie here. Sorry, what's your last name again?
Fitzgibbon.
Fitzgibbon
Yeah,
from Edinburgh Construction. You can find them on www.edinburghconstruction.com, all over social media, on IG under at Edinburgh Construction, and Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and House. And then the email is hello@edinburghconstruction.com. And the phone number again is 0131202008. Let's do the 10 questions. You ready?
Yeah, so I've not read them in advance, but I'm ready for it
There's
nonetheless.
no right
So
or
let's
wrong, Charlie. There's no right or wrong.
do it.
It's just pure fun. There's some thought provoking ones, I guess, but what everyday sound brings you joy?
What everyday sound?
Sound.
Two answers to that. Just as a business owner, if I'm on site, it's the sound of a nail gun going off. If I'm in the office, the sound of the phone ringing because I know that business is being done and money's being made. So that's my favorite sound.
Now, if you can get a ringtone, that is the nail gun.
Ooh,
Oof.
now you're talking.
Somebody make
Now
it.
you're talking.
Somebody make it. What's your favorite beverage?
uh, Irish family, pint of Guinness any
Oh,
day. Yeah,
nice. I'm
yeah.
having one later on now that you brought it up. What's
There
your
you go.
least favorite tool?
Least favorite tool. Oh, such a good. You know what? Just because it's a personality thing, a paintbrush for me. You need to be a certain person to be a painter and decorator, and that ain't me. So for me, it's a paintbrush.
What turns you on creatively?
Uh, Chatting to people, discussions like this, hearing different people's ideas and their stories, I think it's no better source of inspiration.
Nice. What word or concept do you find overused these days?
Uh, Despite we're just talking about it, sustainability. It's so easy to greenwash now, and too many people, too many salespeople are chucking it around, and
Yeah, I love
it's
that.
hard to sift
Yeah, that
through.
term greenwashing. I love it. You want to pick a fight? Bring it up. What is your favorite curse word?
Oh, again, Irish family, so feck off.
What's your favorite vehicle in the entire world? It could be any mode of transportation.
A vehicle. Oh, I used to compete motocross, so two wheels is my thing. So yeah, KTM, shout out,
KTM's. Yeah, I was
dirt
about to
bikes,
say.
450cc.
Awesome.
That's
How are the
my scene.
knees? How are the knees? The knees are still okay?
Oh no, they went a long time ago. That's why I don't do it anymore. I like all my bones in one piece. So
That's my first question, man, for anybody. I never got into motocross because I would see the knees and I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
no,
it's not
no,
good.
I'm not gonna do
Yeah,
that.
not good.
What do you miss from your childhood?
Do I miss from my childhood? Maybe not so much from my childhood, but certainly when I was younger, being on the tools more. You know, it's rare that I get to pick up a tool these days, and I do genuinely miss that. So not maybe not my childhood, but certainly as a
Your youth.
teenager and
Yeah.
young person on the tools, I miss that. Yeah.
If you could master a skill outside of your own expertise, what would it be?
You know, I was talking about this to someone earlier this morning because I'm terrible at it. Multitasking. Honestly, if I could multitask, just you could get more stuff done in the day. You know, I'm awful at it. So.
I don't know if that's a good thing. Like maybe get less stuff done in a day. We'll see.
Mate, well, you know what? That's the answer that the person I was talking about gave. So you could be
Okay.
right.
And the last question, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at those pearly gates?
God, come on in, I guess would be the obvious one. I'd be surprised, but that would be a nice turnout for the books.
Awesome. Charlie, thank you so much for taking the time and being on the show. Absolute pleasure talking with you and talking shop and talking the business and all the best to you guys. And I hope to one day be there and swing by and stop by and say hello
Sure.
to everybody and check out the work. I mean, I'd love to pull that off one day, but I thoroughly enjoy having these conversations and talking shop. So thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Really enjoyed it. Some great topics, and yeah, I think it's wonderful what you're doing, sharing the knowledge and the topics amongst us. It's there's not enough of it, and yeah, if you're ever in Scotland, give us a shout.
Oh,
We'll
I
grab a
will
pint
for
of
sure.
together.
And I want to thank Patrick for setting this up, which is totally cool. So I'll drop him a line and we'll talk after that.
For sure.
But that's it. So don't go anywhere just yet. Angelina, we're out of here.